If you track the channel, you know that we love a good board game, and we are in for a treat today. We've got this new game, Santorini, has been provided for us to test by Spin Master, and we have been absolutely loving this, not only in our family, but the other families that test out games for us as well. It's kind of like chess, crossed with like a role-play game. There's loads of strategy, there's towers, a little bit like Carcassonne, Settlers of Catan. We have had a lot of fun with this. It is for ages 8+, and actually some of the children in our families were a little bit younger and still got on pretty well. So you can see in the box, we've played this quite a bit already. So you have your rules here, and you have your board. Now this sits on top of this plinth and it just pops together. I'll do that for you here, and I'll show you how some of the pieces work. And I want to give you a little introduction to the game so that you can see how it works in practice and how you play it. So there's the board, and then I'll put that over here, and then you have these little pieces. If I hold those up to the camera, can you see that? These little pieces that stack up on each other, and that is how you build and change the map. And so as you play the game, players take turns to move and to build, and if you get one of your players, you know, these little characters here, on top of the tower, then you've won. It's obviously not quite as simple as that, because any other player can come along and cap your tower, and then you can't get on top of it. I think the best way to play it is to show you it in action. I'll just give you a little quick preview of the cards here. So once you've got the basics of the game down first, then you can choose and pick or get selected at random these loads of different cards, and that is what is clever about Santorini. The basic gameplay is simple and addictive and fun, but it's how these cards have been balanced and completely change the way the game is played. So if someone's got a particular ability, they can move differently, they can win differently, they can attack, they can defend, and you have to take account of that if you're going to do well in the game. So I think the thing we should do is get this on our studio here, and I can show you the basics of how to play. So here we are, we've got our board here, and each player has two of these characters, a little girl character and a little boy character. And you place these on the board to get started. The youngest player goes first, so I think over here we're going to have our young player. We're going to put one there, we're going to put one here, and we're going to have our older player over here. Perhaps this is the dad player. Now, you would normally have those strategy cards selected here, and you'd be being very tactical about where you put your characters. But what I want to do is to show you how the game works as a basic play, and then you can go and add in that extra level. And this is how we found it works best in our family. You have to get the basics down so that you can understand how the game develops. So let's get started. So we're going to start with our white player here, who can move one square in any direction, and then you can build one square around anywhere you've landed. And with my blue guy, I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to start building a tower over here. Of course, you win the game by building up to a height of 3 and then getting your player on top. But you can only move up one level at a time. So here we are, the white player can move up there, so that's only one level, and then I can build again. So you have to build levels to move around to get yourself up to the right level to win. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to build a 2 here, and then back over to white. So here I can move and then I can build. So I'm building up this tower. So blues here are starting to think of how they can defend against that. I think I'm going to move here so that I can protect against both of these different buildings. And I'll build mine here. Again, white can move up 1, getting up towards the height where they could win. Still aren't at the top level. And I think they're going to build over behind here. You can see, if we spin the table around, you can see how this is developing. So the board changes as you play, and you build these little villages. So now it's over to blue. So what should we do? I think blue's going to move up to here. I'm going to build down here. We're getting some height in. And I want to keep my white player at the top here on white. So at the white's turn, I'm going to move here, and I'm going to build next to it. Now I'm building over here because I want to try and build this tower where I can get the right height away from the blue players to stop them blocking me. So I think I'm going to see that happening. So blue's going to move over here, moving over to start protecting this tower, because if they build again, they're going to get to that height. But I myself can also build over here. That might be useful for later. So now white's, it's their go. Ooh, so we're going to move over here, and we're going to build our final level. Now this gives us an opportunity to win. If we can get our player on top of this little tower here, we are going to have won the game. That's how you win. But blue, of course, it's their go next, so they can move here and they can block. Now you do that by using one of these little capping pieces, and I can cap that tower so nobody can win that tower. Now it's white's go, so what's white going to do? I think we're gonna move around here. I'm going to start building up from the other side. I'm going to build even further away from blue, see if we can win that way. Blue gets to move and then gets to build. Oh, this is looking quite tasty. So now blue's got a bit of advantage over here because they've got their three-story building, and white can't necessarily get to stop them. So we're going to move white down here, and I think we're going to build here. So now if I move my blue up here, and I need to build. Ooh, so the problem is that this white's going to come and is going to stop us. So I'm going to move there. So now what's going to happen? So white has to block, otherwise next go we would win. So white goes over here. And then caps that tower. So you can see how the sort of strategy, that the attacking and the defending is going back and forth between our two players. So white has just capped it. So it's blue's go now. So what are we going to do? I think we need to bring our other player in. So let's move our blue in here. And I can build as well. Now you can use anyone's tower. So you don't have to get up to the top of your tower. If you can get up to the top of someone else's, then you can win as well. Here I can move. And I can build. What am I going to do? Yes. I can build. I could build there, but I don't want to because that's going to help blue. So we're going to go over here and build this. Now, blues, what are they going to do? I think we're going to concentrate on this area here. I'm going to build there. I'm going to... Yes. Well, we're going to do that? No, because that's just going to help white's going to start another building over here. So now white's... What are we going to do here? I think we've got to... So we have to move first. So I'm going to move over here. So I move over there, and I can then build over here. I think this is where we might be coming to the point of winning. So now blues need to try and come and block that, but I can only move one at a time. So I can only move to there. I can't now build to block it. So I think this is the point where we got our first winner. I can build somewhere, so I could, in theory, build here. But although I can go the next go, white's goes next, and there you go. Whites are the king, the king of that castle. So as you can see, as we spin it round, one thing that's really nice, and younger players like this a lot, you end up building this little city out of these different pieces. And you can see that basic strategy is pretty involved. But what's clever is the way that you then bring these cards in, and that brings a whole nother level. And this really changes how the game feels to play. So we can just go through some of these and sort of tell you the difference of how they work. So here we are. If you had a Minotaur ability at the beginning of your go, you'd have that in front of you. Everyone would know you're a Minotaur. And that would mean that you can bash people off a building. So for instance, if, let's set this up. So if I was here, that was like that. So if that was the setup, and if this player had the Minotaur ability, they could move onto this slot and bash this player down. So they've now taken over, and that means next go they could get onto the top. So that Minotaur ability really changes how you play, and you have to be careful of that, just to make sure that the other player isn't getting an advantage. What should we go through? So many different abilities. We've got Hermes, but as long as they don't go up and down, you can move as many as you like. So that means that if you've got a situation with Hermes, where you've got a character that needs to come round and block something, so maybe the player was here, but we're out of range. But as long as Hermes doesn't go up and down, this Hermes character can come all the way along here, whiz along because of the speed of Hermes, and then block. So Hermes is a great defensive ability. Where else should we pick out here? There's loads of them here. There's one I wanted to show you. So Kronos is interesting. So in Kronos, if there's ever 5 capped towers, then Kronos wins the game. It's another interesting one. Aphrodite is interesting because the players fall in love with Aphrodite. So this makes it much more tactical. So if the white player had Aphrodite and was here, where should we set it up? The white player here had Aphrodite. And this wasn't capped over here. Now in theory, if it's the Blues go, they can just move and win, but the power of Aphrodite means that if they're next to Aphrodite when they start the round, they're in love with her and they can't move away, so that move wouldn't be able to happen. So by using Aphrodite, you can keep these players trapped in an area, and that means your other player could come over here. You could build, if it was like this, you could build and then get up to the top. If you had this on the level 2, obviously we're setting this up, and that means that while they're trapped there with Aphrodite, this one, you can come over here and win. So you start to see how the different players and the different abilities really affect the game. Pan is another great one. So Pan's interesting because if you've got Pan, if you're ever 2 levels up and you can jump down, you've won the game, and that means you have to do a lot of blocking. So if these players, if these blue players had the Pan ability and they were both up there, see one of them was up there, he could jump down and win, which means while you're playing against Pan, it really benefits you to build up around him. So to stop that player winning, you would have needed to build around, and so there's nowhere that Pan can jump down to, and so they couldn't win. But all that would happen is if this player moved away, then next go over here, Pan moves down and takes the victory. So I think what it means is that each time you play the game, it's different, and each different combination of these cards is different as well. It works best, I think, with 2 players, so you have 2 against 2, each of you have 2 pieces. The game also comes with some extra pieces here, so you could play 3 players and each of you are trying to build up in the same way. It can get a bit more crowded, but that certainly worked in our family. There's another game you can play where you do 2 against 2, and each of you have ability, so you can control either of the pieces, but each of you pick 2 abilities, so you'd have 2 here, down the other side, and they'd have 2 as well. And on each player's go, you can then use the ability that you've selected and you've got for your player, which I think is quite a nice sort of touch. So there you go. As we just look at the board spinning around, you can see all the different elements you get with it. There's some beautiful artwork on each of the cards. The pieces themselves are really nicely built. They all clip together nicely. There's no construction, no preparation. You can just essentially clip it together and go. And if you're looking for a really new, inventive family board game, then I think Santorini is well worth checking out, particularly if you've played board games like Settlers of Catan, if you've played board games like Carcassonne or Ticket to Ride. This is another of what I think is going to be a really big classic board game for your family. Let us know what you think in the comments. Not only are you going to play the game, we'd love to hear from you about that, but how are you playing? Do you have a favourite ability or a particular tactic with these different abilities? How do you play each of these abilities in your family? Are different family members got different favourites? Have different particular people got different tactics in your family? Do you find the parents are better, or is it the kids' quick thinking, mental agility that is meaning that they win more often? And actually in our house we often play this with grown-ups as an after dinner game as well. So we play with the kids during the day, and then me and the wife and any dinner guests we've got to hand break out the game and have a lot of fun with it then. I hope that was useful. If you've got any questions about the rules, we're very happy to jump into the comments and answer those as well. But for now, that's all we've got time for on Family Gamer TV.